Hello everyone, this video talks about the required tools to check healthy state of DEF pump, dosing valve and also the supply and return flow pressures of DEF, including any line restrictions, followed by inside-based after-treatment DEF system leak test. Now, we shall move with the introduction of each tools as per their utilities. So let's start with this. The tool shown is fixed with a vacuum gauge, used to measure suction and intake line restriction pressures at DEF pump, to check ability of pump to create vacuum. Here is a vessel, used as a purging tool to remove the cloggings or blockages, deposited inside the DEF flow circuit. Next, the shown tool is fixed with pressure gauge, used to measure the outflow pressures, at DEF pump and at dosing valve. Again, this visible tool is fixed with pressure gauge, used to measure the pressure of DEF flowing towards inlet port at the dosing valve. Finally, here is the beaker, used to measure the accumulated quantity of DEF during the test. Quickly, let's understand UL 2.2 DEF circuit. Kindly note every pointed areas over the layout, for better understandings. Also go through the diagnostic repair values, for recommendations on each mentioned tests. After treatment diesel exhaust fluid pump, suction test. Follow the guidelines, for tool connection, as well as ECM communications. Now, let's connect the inside service tool and start the software application. Launch the ECM diagnostic test screen, as pointed above, and refer to all the bs6 after treatment introduced tests. Now, we begin with after treatment diesel exhaust fluid system leak test. Before proceeding any test, refer the purpose and instructions clearly. Following this inside test every time, we would demonstrate the use of all tools, as required to determine the DEF pressure related issues, in the flow circuit. As defined earlier, we start with the demo, fixing of the vacuum gauge at DEF pump inlet, for suction and intake restriction checks. Note the gauge needle deflections, as indicated. Also refer to the pressure units, as mentioned in gauge, mmHg and inches Hg, for post-test conclusions. This gauge has two connecting points, one is an open adapter side, while the other is a quick release coupler side. Remember, while performing suction test, the shown knob must be turned to a position, as indicated to measure the vacuum, created by DEF pump. Here is the DEF pump, it has two ports, inlet, and the outlet, refer the pointers. For suction test, disconnect both the lines at DEF pump, Then turn the knob position as shown, while keep the outlet line in detached state. After tool installation, start the inside test. Also note, the timer should not exceed 15 seconds. At the same time measure the gauge reading for conclusions, by equating the repair specs. Now, we proceed with the next inspection, DEF pump intake restriction, using the same tool and same inside test. Connect the incoming DEF lines as well, turn the knob position to allow the flow, also attach the pump outlet connector to its port, and even ensure the disconnection of dosing valve inlet and place it in a beaker, as demonstrated. Note, this test must not be continued more than 5 minutes, else fault code 1682 may trigger. Now begin the inside test. During test, measure the gauge reading for conclusions by equating the repair specs. Also observe the DEF flow for any bubbles as pointed. Parallelly take a note of the collected DEF for any particles or crystals leading to the cloggings at pressure lines. Ensure always, after removal of each tool, must be washed thoroughly using deionized water, to avoid forming of any DEF crystals inside the gauge lines. Proceeding with the next check, DEF pump out flow pressure measurement, using another pressure gauge for positive values. Quickly, let us understand UL 2.2 DEF circuit, for DEF pump out flow pressure test. Also go through the diagnostic repair values. Launch the ECM diagnostic test screen, as pointed above. Now, we begin with after treatment DEF system leak test. Before proceeding any test, refer the purpose and instructions clearly. As defined earlier, we start with the demo, fixing of the pressure gauge at dosing valve inlet, for the incoming DEF pressure checks. Note, the gauge needle deflections as indicated, also refer to the pressure units as mentioned in gauge, kg per centimeter square and psi for post-test conclusions. This gauge has two connecting points, one is an open adapter side, while the other is a quick release coupler side. Here is the dosing valve, it has two ports inlet and the outlet, refer the pointers.